Pope Leo XIV has just sent a message that may go down in history, not because it was loud, but because it was clear. Without naming names or pointing fingers, he addressed one of the most sensitive and painful issues in the Catholic world today, the suffering of believers in China. It happened after the Regina Caeli prayer on Sunday. A calm moment, a peaceful gathering. But then came words wrapped in careful wisdom. Pope Leo didn't speak politically. He didn't condemn or criticize. Instead, he told the story of a man, Father Stanisław Kostka, a Polish priest martyred in 1938 during communist persecution. This wasn't just a history lesson, it was a message, a mirror, and anyone listening could see what was being reflected. In lifting up the life and death of a priest who stood firm against communist repression, Pope Leo quietly turned the spotlight toward those enduring the same trials today. He never said China, but the meaning was unmistakable. For the underground Catholics who worship in secret, who suffer in silence, who have waited years for the Vatican to see them, this was a moment of recognition. It marks a turning point. For years, the Vatican's dealings with China have been wrapped in secrecy. Agreements were made behind closed doors, agreements that gave the Chinese state a role in appointing bishops. The goal was dialogue, unity, survival. But the result? Confusion, pain. And for many underground Catholics, those loyal to Rome, not to the state, a deep sense of betrayal. Under past popes, statements about China were often vague, cautious, diplomatic. Officials avoided using words like persecution. Some even described government interference as regulatory challenges. But Pope Leo is striking a different tone. It's still subtle, still careful, but it carries a new weight, a deeper truth. By highlighting a martyr of communism and encouraging priests today to show similar courage, he has made his position known. He is not looking away. That same Sunday, the message grew louder without raising its voice. The Church was celebrating the Feast of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Help of Christians, a day Pope Benedict XV dedicated especially to the Church in China. On this day, Pope Leo led a global prayer. He asked Mary for strength, peace, and joy for those living their faith in hardship. He called for unity, for quiet courage. Again, no direct reference to China, but every word seemed aimed at the hearts of those enduring hardship under the red banner of control. The reaction has been swift and emotional. Around the world, Catholics heard something different in Pope Leo's words. Not just prayer, but presence, not just tradition, but solidarity. Religious freedom advocates are now calling on the Vatican to take the next step, reassess those hidden agreements, reclaim moral leadership, and stand clearly, firmly, beside those who are suffering for the gospel. Because this isn't just about diplomacy. This is about human souls, about communities that feel abandoned, about bishops who are imprisoned or under house arrest for their loyalty to the Pope. Their only crime? Refusing to put the state above Christ. Reports say at least 10 bishops are currently being held or silenced by government control, and nearly 30 dioceses in China have no bishop at all. These aren't just empty seats. They are spiritual deserts, places where the faithful wait and hope and struggle to stay strong. Nowhere is this pain felt more deeply than in the Diocese of Shanghai, once a crown jewel of Catholic life in China. Today, its leadership is clouded in controversy. A bishop aligned with the government church took office, reportedly without clear Vatican approval. To underground Catholics, this raised the hardest question of all. Who truly speaks for Christ in China, Rome or Beijing? For years, many in the church hierarchy remained silent. Faithful Catholics watched as diplomacy seemed to drown out justice. But Pope Leo seems ready to change that. He is not shouting, he is not accusing, but he is standing with those who risk everything to hold Mass in basements and barns, who baptize their children in secret, who whisper prayers in fear, who live with eyes over their shoulder, but with faith in their hearts. These are not just stories, these are modern-day martyrs, and their witness should not be met with silence. Pope Leo's words may be cautious, but they are bold in meaning. And now many are asking what comes next. Will the Vatican push for the release of imprisoned clergy? Will the Pope insist that the appointment of bishops return to the Church, not the state? Will he call out the injustice directly? No one knows for sure. But this much is clear: a new chapter is beginning. Pope Leo's way is not one of dramatic confrontation, but it is a way of conscience. His emphasis on quiet strength, clarity, of faith and solidarity with the suffering tells the world that the Vatican is watching, and that it will no longer pretend not to see. Still, it won't be easy. The Chinese government is known to respond harshly to criticism, especially about religion. Any bold move could endanger Catholics on the ground. And yet, what is the Church, if not a voice for the voiceless? As one advocate put it, faithfulness to Christ must always come before fear of conflict. And Pope Leo seems to understand that. In a world where so much is noise, empty talk, and broken promises, sometimes the most powerful message is the one that simply stands firm. By honoring a man who died under communist oppression, by praying for the Church in China, and by calling the clergy to live with courage and truth, Pope Leo is beginning something new. It is a movement not of politics, but of principle. Not of strategy, but of soul. Catholics around the world are watching closely, and they are praying that this new path continues, that the Church will no longer trade truth for access or silence for convenience. They pray that the light of Christ will shine through even the most guarded walls, because what's at stake is more than policy. It's the very heart of the Church. This moment may be small, but it is sacred, and it reminds us all that real leadership isn't always loud. Sometimes it simply chooses to see, to speak, to stand, for the truth, for the forgotten, and for the freedom of every soul who dares to believe in the dark. The days following Pope Leo's message have already sparked quiet waves across Catholic communities, especially in Asia. In Hong Kong, a small yet devout Catholic enclave gathered for a candlelit vigil. Though no media were invited, the intention was clear: a prayer for the underground church in China, and a moment to show unity with the Pope's unspoken message. A priest who led the vigil said softly, "We hear him. We know he meant us." In parts of rural China, where surveillance is tight and any form of religious activity outside state-approved boundaries is heavily monitored, the Pope's message was passed along by whispered conversations, handwritten notes, and encrypted messages among believers. The faithful there are used to silence, from the world, from their government, even sometimes from Rome. But this time they heard something different. A shift, a soft but steady voice reaching out to them. For many, that small gesture means everything. Outside of China, the message has stirred a long-needed conversation. Bishops from countries with large Chinese diaspora populations, such as the Philippines, Canada, and Australia, have called for increased prayer, awareness, and solidarity. Some have even begun organizing forums to address the moral complexities of the Vatican's agreements with China. These were topics long considered too delicate or politically dangerous to discuss openly. Now they're on the table. Human rights organizations and religious freedom advocates have also taken notice. One senior policy analyst in Washington, D.C. remarked, "This may be the first time in years we've seen the Vatican speak with this kind of moral backbone on China. It may be veiled in historical reference and religious symbolism, but the intention is clear, and it's powerful." Analysts and theologians alike are now debating whether Pope Leo XIV is preparing for a deeper restructuring of how the Holy See handles diplomacy with authoritarian states. Inside the Vatican itself, signs of this shift are beginning to appear. Sources close to the Curia suggest that Pope Leo has commissioned a small advisory group to revisit the 2018 Vatican-China agreement. Though still under confidentiality, the group reportedly includes canon lawyers, diplomats, and bishops from persecuted countries. Their task: to study whether current arrangements have truly served the Church or simply preserved an uneasy status quo. For the Pope, the way forward may not be through political confrontation, but spiritual consistency. He appears determined to anchor his decisions in the timeless witness of martyrs, not the temporary comfort of political deals. His homilies now often include references to early Christians who worshipped in catacombs, saints